Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back inside the League Unlocked studios, and we've already had plenty of off-the-rift news so far in the spring split. You know, the main ones were Pobelter coming in for Crown, and now CLG announcing that Crown is no longer with the team, and now Rush is coming over to CLG, but it's just as a content creator, not going to be starting for any of the rosters. But those all pale in comparison to Team Liquid benching Doublelift for Week 7, and potentially beyond that, who knows. This was kind of a meme when it was announced that he was sick with laryngitis and sat out last week, and then they ended up looking great, and you say, well, maybe Doublelift should sit out. And that appears to be what's going to happen, which seems absolutely insane. The most decorated North American player ever, the most winning franchise player, and the most iconic North American player in the history of the league is benched, which seems a little bit insane. We know a lot of it is because of his motivation issues for how much Spring Split actually means, and when you've won the LCS 4 times in a row, maybe that drive isn't quite still there, and I will give huge credit to Doublelift, especially if you compare to what Forgiven did with Schalke in his tweet afterwards, basically saying, you know, this team's bad, I'm not going to be here anymore. That's paraphrasing, of course. Doublelift released a tweet that really cleared things up, got rid of all speculation. Doublelift and Team Liquid being incredibly transparent. I'm benched because I had no motivation until very recently. Being sick and I'm unable to compete gave me my passion back, but too late. Sorry towards every one of my teammates. I'll be working from now on to regain their trust. Now, I'm not fully convinced that their teammates have fully lost their trust in him for having half a split of not performing to that same level when you had 2 full years being the absolute best in North America. But for somebody like Broxa, I can absolutely see where there would be frustration coming in, and you are so incredibly motivated. Your first split in North America, you had to be delayed for so long. You were just kind of sitting in solo queue purgatory for a full month before you finally got to come over, and who is supposed to be the main leader on this squad doesn't quite have the same drive towards winning that you have. Sure, you would absolutely be frustrated. So how bad has Doublelift actually been in spring? If you're talking about by his standards, it's definitely not to the same level. Sure, he still has the laning numbers that we saw throughout his whole time. He's top 3 in CSD at 15, goal differential, and XP, but how much of that is to actually do with core JJ? What's more jarring are some of these numbers. The KDA, we're used to him being top 3 at worst. He hasn't had a sub 4 KDA since 2014 CLG when they weren't a very good team. The damage numbers, he's almost always around 30%, so just where he's ranking among some of these other AD carries, and really, outside of course, you have Sven having an absolutely incredible split. Bang is suffering on Evil Geniuses. Cody Sun and Wild Turtle are there, but Doublelift should absolutely be right behind Sven. Historically, that's absolutely what we've seen out of him. He has had, of course, some uncharacteristically bad games, getting solo 2v2 killed by Golden Guardians, bot lane, Keith, and FBI, and there's been some games where, you know, it looks like normal Doublelift. He hasn't just fed every single game. He had some good games against FlyQuest and CLG, who absolutely everybody has. But you're not used to seeing this. Core JJ and Doublelift just getting whacked, and a lot of the early struggles, you cannot solely peg them onto Doublelift, of course. Impact was not looking good, and you didn't have Broxa at all. So yes, those were huge issues as well, but not having the motivation and the fact that Doublelift himself recognized that, and you've heard him in multiple interviews, whether it was on Riot broadcasts or on episodes of Squad, he's basically just said, spring doesn't mean that much, and if it's not international, he just doesn't quite have that same drive. Well, one way to absolutely get motivation is to lose your starting spot, and we talked about this earlier this week, comparing to 2017 spring when he took some time off, and you heard him talk about his streaming career, and he just didn't get it wasn't the same feeling. It wasn't as satisfying as actually competing on that highest level, looking for wins, working as a team towards a common goal. And that fire was refueled during that split off. He didn't even last the whole split when he came back with a then terrible Team Liquid squad to beat TSM. So this is absolutely going to be the remotivating factor that he needs. And you saw the Twitter banter with Jensen and Jack kind of chiming in, where have I heard this before? And it didn't necessarily work with Sneaky. It actually kind of put a wedge in between the relationship between him and Cloud9 management. I can't see that happening with Doublelift because there was not the transparency with Cloud9 during that stint that we have now, where Team Liquid just straight up said, we will be evaluating, or Steve said, we'll be going week to week who we want to start at AD carry, because they brought in Rikara to be their academy starting AD carry, which means Doublelift and Tactical are both going to be splitting time with the LCS squad. So remains to be seen how long Doublelift is actually out. But if Tactical plays as well as he did in week 6, who's to say he doesn't start for the remainder of the regular season, maybe even beyond, because there's no question that Team Liquid looked the best that they have all split in week 6. The team kill death, 22. They only died once. We've talked about that about 5 times. Tactical didn't die at all. They almost had a 4K gold differential at 15 minutes, and they only lost 2 turrets on the entire week. Is that just because of Tactical? No, he was great, and he worked well with Core JJ, as pretty much any AD carry should with a world-class support like that. Impact looked better. Broxa has more practice. Everybody else stepped up and probably knew that they had to with Doublelift out of the lineup. So all of this happening, I think it's only going to be a blessing in disguise for Team Liquid. Tactical gets some lovely and well-earned stage time on the LCS, and he can kind of showcase to other teams that he's worthy or capable of being an LCS starter, because there's no way that at some point Doublelift isn't going to be coming back into the starting lineup. The real question is just when. And the longest I could possibly see it going is throughout the spring split, because, and even that would be crazy to me to not see him playing around playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Tactical played in week 8 and 9 as well, and maybe even going into playoffs, and maybe you see some substitutes happening when the best of 5 start rolling around in this new LCS format. But Team Liquid looked like an absolutely different team in week 6, and Doublelift, for a guy who was always searched and praised himself as being the absolute best, having the best work ethic, all the lack of solo queue practice that we've seen and heard of so far, regardless of whether or not spring split is meaningless, this is absolutely the fire and drive that he's going to need to get back to that top level. And there's no question that if Team Liquid wants to compete internationally, which we know is the goal of this team, they're going to need Doublelift in their lineup, and they're going to need him playing at his absolute peak levels of performance. So this is actually, it's the best time that it could happen for them so early on in the calendar year of games. And maybe we see a renewed and fresh Doublelift coming in, even though it is still early in 2020. But we know he took an extended off season, much warranted. They went to MSI and Worlds last year. It's great to see how Team Liquid handled this with transparency, how Doublelift reacted to it and recognized that, yeah, absolutely, I wasn't motivated, I wasn't playing the same level. Sorry I disappointed my teammates. I'm just excited to see his work ethic, his true work ethic, come out as he builds back to getting to that starting role. But I wouldn't be shocked if you see Tactical play for the next couple of weeks in the LCS. And by the way, even with Tactical, Team Liquid easily can climb to being that second best team in North America, which is exactly what the LCS needs, because they need an actual competitor for Cloud9, because right now it looks like they are playing against a minor region.